The wind blew bitterly through the streets of Fairhaven as Samuel Davis pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders. At 71, Sam was used to hard winters, but the chill seemed to cut deeper now, as if sensing that the veteran no longer had the energy of his youth. He walked slowly past the small shops lining Main Street, his cane tapping the pavement with each step, like a metronome counting down the moments of another quiet day. Retired, widowed, and living on a modest pension, Sam's days were long but rarely eventful. He paused by the bus stop and adjusted his knit cap. Across the street, a woman struggled to push a stroller through the slushy snow. Her worn coat barely closed around her, and the toddler bundled inside the stroller fussed, crying from the cold. Sam watched as she stopped, took a deep breath, and tried to calm her child with a soft lullaby, her voice quivering. Something about her struck Sam deep. Perhaps it was her exhausted eyes, haunted yet tender, or the desperate determination in every move she made. Sam's heart clenched as he watched a few passers-by hurry past without a glance. He could almost feel her exhaustion, the weight of countless sleepless nights and too many days of trying to stretch a few dollars further than they would go. Without another thought, he crossed the street, his steps careful but resolute. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice gentle but carrying warmth. The woman's eyes met his, surprised and wary at first. She looked as though she was ready to refuse help, her pride battered but not fully broken. But the exhaustion was too great, and after a moment's pause, she nodded, her lips trembling as she whispered a soft, "Thank you." Sam gently took the stroller's handle and pushed it free of the slushy mound. "Name's Sam," he said, hoping to ease her mind with a friendly tone. "Amanda," she replied, glancing at her child. "And this is Jake." "Well, Amanda and Jake, where are you headed?" "Just a few blocks to the shelter. They have a warm meal tonight." Sam's throat tightened. He remembered days when he and his late wife, Margaret, had done volunteer shifts at that very shelter. But that was years ago, back when he could still hold tools in his hands and fix things with pride, back when Margaret's laughter filled every corner of their small house. The thought of this young woman and her child heading to the shelter brought forth a wave of sorrow. He noticed Amanda's hands, raw and red from the cold. "Here," he said, reaching into his pocket with slightly shaking hands. He pulled out the crumpled bills he'd been saving for groceries and coffee, a small treat he allowed himself once a week. $37 in all. "Take this," he said, pressing the money into her palm. Amanda stepped back, shaking her head. "I can't take this. You don't even know me." Sam smiled softly. "Don't need to know you need it more than I do." Tears welled in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't have to," Sam said. Just take care of yourself and the little guy." He paused, feeling the weight of his own words. "I've had my time. Yours is just beginning." He waved as he walked away, hearing her call out a shaky thank you that carried more emotion than words could hold. He didn't look back. Part of him wanted to reassure her further, but he knew that sometimes dignity came in the quiet moments when you weren't being watched. The next morning, Sam awoke in his small, drafty apartment. The walls were lined with photos from his military days, medals hung proudly alongside pictures of him and Margaret. He felt the pinch of the empty wallet in his drawer, but there was no regret. Yet he could not shake the image of Amanda and Jake. The memory haunted him as he ate a sparse breakfast. Still, he had no idea just how much that brief encounter would ripple through his life. A knock at the door startled him from his thoughts. No one visited him unannounced anymore. He shuffled over, curious. When he opened the door, a deliveryman stood holding a small box wrapped in simple brown paper. "Samuel Davis," the man asked. "That's me." "That's me." "This is for you with that." The deliveryman handed over the package and left. Sam's hands trembled as he closed the door and set the box on the table. Carefully, he opened it and found an envelope resting atop a folded note. He pulled out the note first, his heart racing as he recognized Amanda's handwriting. Sam unfolded the note with care, feeling each crinkle of the paper, as if it carried all the weight of Amanda's gratitude. Her handwriting was neat but slightly uneven, as if written during a moment of deep emotion. "Dear Sam," it began. "You may not know how much your kindness meant to me, but I want to try to explain. That night, when you helped me push Jake's stroller through the snow and gave me your last few dollars, you changed more than just our circumstances. You gave me hope at a moment when I had almost none left." Sam sat down heavily in his worn-out chair, absorbing each word. Amanda continued, describing the series of struggles that had brought her to that moment. She had lost her job months ago after taking too many days off to care for her sick child. Bills piled up, and soon she was evicted. She tried to find work while staying at a shelter, but no one wanted to hire a single mother with limited availability. The weight of her story pressed down on Sam's heart, each word like a reminder of life's unpredictability. "When you gave me that money," Amanda wrote, "it wasn't just about the cash. It was about someone seeing me, caring enough to help. It kept me going. I wanted you to know that the next day I found work, a temporary position at a diner. It doesn't pay much, but it's a start. Your kindness gave me the strength to try again. Thank you." As Sam read, he became aware of the other item in the box. He set the letter aside and opened the envelope, revealing a stack of crisp $100 bills, 10 of them, totaling $1,000. For a moment, he simply stared. It didn't make sense. Why would Amanda, barely getting by herself, send him this? Then he noticed a second note at the bottom of the box, written in a different hand, stronger and bolder. "Mr. Davis," it read. "I'm Amanda's father. We had been estranged for some time. When I learned what you did for her and my grandson, I felt ashamed that a stranger showed more compassion than I had. My daughter told me about your selflessness, and I wanted to express my gratitude. This money is only a token, but I hope it helps you as you help them. With sincere respect, Robert Mitchell." Sam's head spun. He had heard of Robert Mitchell, one of the wealthier businessmen in town, known for his luxury car dealerships. Their paths would never have crossed under ordinary circumstances. Yet, through a simple act of kindness, they were now linked in a way that defied explanation. The weight of the gift was overwhelming, but so too was the knowledge that Amanda had reconnected with her father. It was a greater reward than any sum of money. The following day, Sam decided to visit the diner where Amanda now worked. He tucked the money into his coat's inner pocket, unsure what he would do with it yet, but certain that he needed to see how she was faring. As he walked down Main Street, he felt an unexpected spring in his step. The air was crisp but carried a sense of renewal, as if the world itself had shifted. He found Amanda in the back, clearing tables with a determined focus. When she saw him, her face lit up, and she quickly wiped her hands on her apron. "Sam," she said, rushing over. "I wasn't sure I'd see you again. Thought I'd check in, see how you're doing," Sam replied, smiling. "Looks like you're doing well." "It's a start," she said, eyes bright. "And it's thanks to you." Sam shook his head. "You did the hard work." They talked for a few minutes, but Sam felt the weight of the money in his pocket, burning like an ember. "I got your package," he said slowly. "And the letter from your father." Amanda nodded, looking down at her hands. "I didn't know if he would respond, but I had to try. When he came to see me, I told him everything. About you, about what you did for us. It opened a door I thought was locked forever." "That's good," Sam said quietly. "Families should try to be there for each other." A few moments of silence passed, filled only by the clatter of dishes and murmured conversations around them. Finally, Sam reached into his coat and pulled out the envelope. "This, I don't know if I can accept it." Amanda put her hand on his arm. "Please. You gave us more than money. Let it help you too." Sam's throat tightened. He wanted to protest, but he saw the sincerity in her eyes. This was her way of honoring what he had done. He nodded, tucking the envelope away again. Over the next few weeks, Sam used the money carefully. He paid off overdue bills, fixed a leaky roof that had been troubling him for months, and even treated himself to new winter boots. But as grateful as he was for the relief, he couldn't shake the feeling that the money's true purpose hadn't yet been fulfilled. One afternoon, while at the community center helping distribute meals to those in need, something he'd done every week since his encounter with Amanda, he overheard a young man named Luis speaking to another volunteer. Luis, barely 20, had been living out of his car while trying to finish his technical certification in electrical work. The burden was heavy, and Sam recognized the same exhaustion he had seen in Amanda's eyes. Sam approached him after the meal. "Luis, do you have a moment?" Luis nodded, surprised. Sam rarely spoke about personal matters, instead focusing on tasks at hand. "I've been where you are," Sam began. "Life has a way of knocking you down. But there's always a way forward." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I want to help you. Not as charity, but as a hand up." Luis was taken aback, but eventually nodded, gratitude shining through. The next day, Sam paid the tuition balance Luis needed to finish his certification. It wasn't about the money, it was about passing on the kindness that had lifted him. As the days turned into weeks, Sam's life began to change in subtle, profound ways. Unexpected connections formed, and his once quiet world felt full again. He didn't realize that this was only the beginning of the ripple his kindness had set in motion. Winter gradually gave way to the first hints of spring. The days grew longer, and as sunlight crept through Sam's modest apartment window, it seemed to reflect the warmth growing within him. For the first time in years, Sam felt more than just the slow passage of time. He felt connected, truly connected to a community he had once watched from a distance. The threads of kindness that had started with Amanda and her son Jake were now weaving themselves into a broader tapestry, and Sam found himself marveling at it all. His mornings were spent volunteering at the community center, where people now greeted him warmly, with genuine smiles and shared stories. In the afternoons, he would meet with Luis, helping the young man with job applications and coaching him through interviews. Luis's confidence grew with every passing day, and Sam took pride in watching the once tired young man carry himself taller, more certain of his future. But the ripple didn't stop there. Word of Sam's generosity and quiet guidance began to spread. One morning, as Sam was preparing to leave the center, a woman approached him, nervously twisting the strap of her purse. Her name was Rita, and she had heard of Sam's efforts through a mutual acquaintance. Rita explained that she was on the verge of losing her small bakery, a beloved neighborhood fixture where many families gathered. Rising costs, compounded by a broken oven and dwindling sales, had left her on the brink of closure. "I don't know why I'm telling you this," Rita said, her voice trembling. I heard you've helped people. I don't know what else to do." Sam listened intently, his heart heavy. He didn't have the financial means to save a business, but he knew the power of community. "Let's see what we can do," he said. Together, they launched a fundraiser, using every connection they could muster. Amanda pitched in, rallying people from the diner. Luis volunteered to help with repairs in his off hours. Others from the community center offered their skills painting signs, organizing events, spreading the word. Donations trickled in, and little by little, the goal seemed within reach. During this time, Sam became a fixture at the bakery. He spent countless hours cleaning tables, chatting with customers, and encouraging Rita to keep going even when doubt crept in. There were moments of discouragement, times when it seemed their efforts would fall short. Yet Sam had come to understand that the power of kindness wasn't in grand gestures alone, but in persistence, in showing up when others needed it most. One rainy afternoon, just as Sam was helping to rearrange shelves in the bakery, the bell above the door chimed. Sam turned to see Robert Mitchell standing there, his imposing figure framed by the doorway. For a moment, everything seemed to still. Though they had exchanged brief letters, Sam had not seen Amanda's father in person. He approached slowly, his expression difficult to read. "Mr. Davis," Robert said, extending a hand. "I've been meaning to thank you properly." Sam shook his hand, unsure what to say. He sensed there was more to this visit. Robert glanced around the bakery, his eyes taking in the bustling activity and the volunteers' determination. "You're helping again," he said, as if stating the obvious carried deeper meaning. "I've heard about the fundraiser. It seems you're always at the heart of things." "It's not just me," Sam said. "It's everyone here." Robert nodded, pausing as if weighing his next words. "I'd like to help too," he finally said. "This place means something to a lot of people. I've always believed in giving back, but I think I lost sight of what that really meant. Seeing what you did for Amanda reminded me." He reached into his coat and handed Sam an envelope. "This should cover the remaining repairs and debts." Sam opened the envelope and stared at the check inside, too stunned to speak. It was more than enough. He turned to Robert, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have no idea what this means." Robert's face softened. "I think I do." That night, as they locked up the bakery, Sam stood with Rita in the glow of the streetlights. Tears streaked her face as she spoke. "I thought it was over. I really did. But you and everyone else," she struggled to find words, finally settling on a heartfelt, "Thank you." "It's what we do," Sam said simply, realizing as he spoke how true it had become. Days turned into weeks, and the bakery's doors remained open, welcoming customers new and old. Word spread of how the community had rallied around it, and soon people came not just for bread and pastries but to hear the story. They wanted to see the place where compassion had triumphed, where people had come together to lift each other up. Sam became something of a local legend, though he shied away from the attention. To him, it wasn't about praise or recognition. It was about seeing people stand a little taller, laugh a little louder, and believe in themselves again. He saw it in Amanda, now saving for her own apartment. He saw it in Luis, who had landed his first stable job as an apprentice electrician. He saw it in Rita's eyes every time she handed a fresh loaf of bread to a customer. One sunny afternoon, Sam sat outside the bakery, sipping coffee. He marveled at the scene before him: neighbors talking, children laughing, the air filled with the aroma of freshly baked goods. Amanda joined him, carrying Jake on her hip. "Can I sit?" she asked. Of course. Of course." She set Jake down, and the toddler waddled over to Sam, climbing into his lap. Sam chuckled, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years. Amanda smiled, watching them. "You've changed so many lives," she said softly. "I hope you know that?" Sam shook his head, still humbled by the idea. "I just did what I could, what anyone would." "Not everyone would," Amanda said. "That's what makes it special." For a moment they sat in comfortable silence, watching life unfold around them. Sam realized that in giving what little he had received more than he ever thought possible. Community, friendship, purpose, all born from a single act of kindness. But the story wasn't done. He felt it in the laughter of the people around him, in the gentle weight of Jake's head resting against his chest. The ripples would continue, carried by every person touched by the simple act of caring. Spring turned into summer, and Fairhaven buzzed with a renewed sense of community spirit. The little acts of kindness that had begun with Sam's simple gesture seemed to spark others into action. People helped one another more freely. Inspired by the story of the retired veteran who gave his last dollars to a struggling mother, Sam often found himself humbled by how far those few crumpled bills had traveled, touching lives he'd never imagined. One warm afternoon, Sam was in the bakery, helping Rita organize a new display of community art, a small initiative to give local artists a platform. As he arranged a painting of sunflowers, the door chimed and Luis walked in, grinning from ear to ear. He was wearing a freshly pressed work uniform, and in his hand he held a small box wrapped in brown paper. "Big news, Mr. Davis," Luis said, barely containing his excitement. "I got promoted. They're making me a full-time lead technician." Sam beamed, shaking his hand. "That's incredible, Luis. I knew you'd get there." Luis glanced at the floor, his smile turning shy. "I couldn't have done it without you." He handed Sam the box. "This is for you." Sam unwrapped the paper carefully, revealing a custom-made toolbox. Inside were high-quality tools engraved with his initials. Every good mentor needs tools to keep going, Luis said, his eyes misty. So you can keep helping people, like you did for me. Sam's chest tightened with emotion, and he placed a hand on Luis's shoulder. Thank you. This means more than you know. They were interrupted by Amanda and Jake, who had come to visit. Jake ran to Sam, hugging his leg. Over the past months, the bond between Sam and Jake had grown unbreakable, with the boy often calling him Grandpa Sam. It was a name that filled Sam with joy and a deep, abiding love he hadn't felt since Margaret's passing. As they all gathered around a table, talking and laughing, Sam felt the stirrings of something that had once seemed lost hope for the future. But he soon realized that this day held even more surprises. The door to the bakery opened once again, and in walked Robert Mitchell. This time, his face was not marked by hesitation. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had reconnected with his daughter and grandson, and who now understood the importance of being present. Robert approached their table and nodded at Sam. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all, Sam said, motioning for him to sit. Robert sat down, placing an envelope on the table between them. I've been thinking a lot about what you did, Sam. Not just for Amanda and Jake, but for the community. You didn't have to, but you did. He tapped the envelope lightly. I want to give back in a way that lasts. Sam looked at him. Curious. What's this? Robert pushed the envelope toward him. It's the deed to a piece of land on the edge of town. I want to fund a community center, a place where people can gather, learn, and grow. But I'd like you to lead it, to shape it into something special. The table fell silent. Everyone stared at Robert, then at Sam. The offer was overwhelming, too big for Sam to grasp at first. He had been a man with little to give, and yet he was being asked to lead a place that would help so many. I don't know if I'm the right person, Sam said finally, his voice heavy with emotion. Amanda spoke up, her eyes shining with pride. You are the right person, Sam. You've shown us all what it means to care. Luis nodded. I wouldn't be here without you. Even Rita added. If there's one person who knows how to bring people together, it's you. Sam's heart swelled. He thought of Margaret and the quiet promises they had made to each other to always try to make the world a better place, no matter how small the effort. Maybe this was his chance to keep that promise on a larger scale. He took a deep breath and nodded. I'll do it. Applause broke out, and tears sprang to Sam's eyes. For so long he had believed that his days of making a difference were over. Now, he realized they had just begun. In the months that followed, the community center rose from the ground, brick by brick. Sam led the effort, guiding volunteers and working tirelessly to ensure it would be a place of learning, support, and hope. Classes were offered for job skills, parenting, and financial literacy. Art workshops and book clubs found a home. There was a childcare center where parents could leave their kids while attending classes. Luis even taught a course on electrical work, mentoring a new generation just as he had been mentored. The opening day of the center was a joyous occasion. Sam stood on a small stage surrounded by friends and neighbors. Amanda and Jake stood at his side, along with Robert, Luis, Rita, and countless others who had been touched by his kindness. Sam took the microphone, his voice steady but full of emotion. I never expected any of this, he began. All I did was try to help when I saw someone in need. But what I learned is that kindness doesn't stop with one person. It grows and spreads, touching lives in ways we can't always see. He paused, glancing at the faces before him, young and old, hopeful and determined. This center belongs to all of us. It's a place to come together, to help each other stand when we're struggling, and to celebrate when we rise. Applause thundered through the air, echoing across Fairhaven. Sam stepped back, overwhelmed by the love and gratitude pouring from the crowd. In that moment he felt Margaret's presence, as if she were standing beside him, smiling with pride. Tears filled his eyes, but they were tears of joy, of healing, of a life lived with purpose. Over time, the community center became a beacon of hope. People from all walks of life came through its doors, carrying their struggles and leaving with strength. Sam continued to work tirelessly, but he no longer felt alone. He had found a family not just in Amanda, Jake, and Luis, but in every person who stepped through those doors and shared in the mission of lifting one another up. One evening, as Sam closed up the center, he found a small note slipped into his pocket. It simply read, "Thank you for showing us the power of one act of kindness. You've changed lives, including mine." He folded the note and placed it near his heart, knowing it was true. One small act had set a ripple in motion, but it was love, compassion, and the power of community that had turned it into a wave. Walking home, Sam no longer felt the burden of age or the weight of years gone by. He had given his last dollars to help a single mother and her child, and in return, he had been given a gift that transcended money, a life rich with purpose, connection, and endless possibilities for kindness to continue.